Most people think self-care means comfort, rest, distraction, escape. But comfort has never built a strong life. Stoicism teaches a harder truth. You do not love yourself by indulging yourself. You love yourself by not abandoning yourself. By holding standards when emotion weakens you. By choosing discipline over impulse. By staying upright when life applies pressure. What follows is not motivation. It is a way of living. 7 Stoic habits. Not to feel better for a moment, but to become someone who no longer falls apart. Listen carefully. Because strength is not found in comfort. It is built through choice. Habit 1. Live by virtue, not emotion. Most people believe they are making choices. But in truth, they are reacting. They wake up already ruled by how they feel. If the morning feels heavy, they move slowly. If something irritates them, they lash out. If fear whispers, they retreat. If boredom appears, they reach for comfort. This is not a life guided by reason. It is a life dragged forward by emotion. Stoicism begins where modern thinking refuses to look. It does not ask you to feel better first. It asks you to act better first. Because emotions do not create clarity. Clarity creates stability, and stability reshapes emotion. Marcus Aurelius did not write to himself about chasing happiness. He wrote about remaining upright when happiness was unavailable. He understood that a human being is not defined by what they feel, but by what they choose when feelings are unstable. Emotion is whither. Virtue is direction. When emotion leads, your standards collapse under pressure. You say things you later wish you could erase. You break promises you once believed in. You abandon disciplines that mattered yesterday. And after each emotional reaction, something inside you weakens. Not loudly. Quietly. Because the deepest form of self-betrayal is knowing better and doing otherwise. Virtue is what remains when emotion is stripped away. It is not excitement. It is not motivation. It is not mood. It is a commitment to act in alignment with who you respect, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. The Stoics understood that life becomes unbearable not because it is painful, but because it is chaotic. And chaos begins the moment emotion takes the throne. That is why they anchored life to 4 quiet but immovable pillars. Wisdom, the courage to see reality as it is, not as fear reshapes it. Courage, the willingness to move forward despite discomfort. Justice, the discipline to remain honorable when shortcuts tempt you. Temperance, the strength to master desire instead of being mastered by it. When you act from these principles, your life gains weight. Your words become steadier. Your decisions stop swinging. Your self-image hardens into something reliable. Think carefully about the last time emotion controlled you. You did not feel powerful afterward. You felt diminished. Because you sensed the distance between who you were in that moment and who you know you are capable of being. Now remember a moment when you acted from principle instead. When you remained calm while others provoked you. When you did the difficult thing without applause. When you honored a boundary even though it cost you approval. That quiet firmness you felt afterward was not pride. It was coherence. Your inner world and your actions were aligned. That alignment is self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of real self-care. Stoicism offers a simple internal checkpoint, one that cuts through confusion. Before you act, pause and ask yourself not how you feel, but who you are becoming. Is this action wise? Is it just? Is it courageous? Is it restrained? If the answer is no, do not move yet. Not because you are weak, but because you are disciplined. This is not about suppressing emotion. Stoicism never demanded emotional numbness. It demanded emotional hierarchy. Emotion informs. Virtue decides. When virtue holds the wheel, your life becomes harder to shake. You stop negotiating with impulses. You stop living in apology to your future self. You stop feeling ashamed of yesterday's choices. You become predictable in the only way that matters. You can trust yourself. And when a person can trust themselves, they no longer seek constant reassurance from the world. They move with quiet authority. They speak with restraint. They endure without collapsing. This is why living by virtue is not moral idealism. It is psychological grounding. It is stability in motion. It is strength without aggression. Above all, it is the first act of refusing to abandon yourself. Habit 2. Protect your mind through the dichotomy of control. Most of human suffering does not come from pain. It comes from resistance. From fighting reality as if it should have asked for permission before unfolding. Most people exhaust themselves trying to manage outcomes, control other people, predict the future, rewrite the past, or hold responsibility for emotions that were never theirs to carry. And then they wonder why their mind feels crowded, restless, and heavy. Stoicism cuts through this confusion with a truth so simple it feels almost offensive. Some things are within your control. Some things are not. And your entire inner life depends on whether you know the difference. You suffer not because life is unfair, but because you demand control where none exists. The Stoics understood that the mind weakens when it chases what it cannot command. Energy leaks when attention is scattered. Peace dissolves when responsibility is misplaced. Epictetus did not say that life would be easy. He said it would be clear, if you were willing to see it clearly. Only 3 things truly belong to you: your judgments, your choices, your actions. Everything else, outcomes, timing, opinions, recognition, rejection, success, failure, other people's behavior, even the body itself, exists outside your command. The modern mind resists this. It wants control because control feels like safety. So it grips harder. And in gripping harder, it breaks itself. Think about how much mental weight you carried recently that was never yours. Someone misunderstood you. Someone acted unfairly. A plan collapsed. An effort went unnoticed. A message was not returned the way you hoped. None of this belonged to you. Yet you carried it as if it did. And carrying what is not yours quietly erodes self-respect. Because every time you obsess over what you cannot control, you neglect what you can. Stoicism is not detachment from life. It is precision within life. It teaches you where to place your attention so it stops bleeding. The dichotomy of control is not a philosophy you admire. It is a boundary you enforce. Every disturbance becomes a question. Is this within my control? If the answer is yes, you act with full responsibility, without hesitation, without complaint. If the answer is no, you release it without negotiation. Not later. Immediately. This is not indifference. It is discipline. Because peace does not come from fixing everything. It comes from refusing to fight unwinnable battles. Most people confuse letting go with giving up. But letting go is an act of strength. It is the decision to conserve your mind for what actually shapes your character. When you stop trying to control what was never yours, something shifts inside you. Your reactions slow. Your breathing deepens. Your thoughts lose their sharp edges. You become harder to provoke. Harder to manipulate. Harder to exhaust. Because your inner world is no longer open territory for every external disturbance. Your peace stops being conditional. You no longer need perfect circumstances to feel grounded. You no longer collapse when plans change. You no longer personalize every inconvenience as a personal failure or attack. You respond instead of react. And response always comes from strength. Protecting your mind through the dichotomy of control is one of the highest forms of self-care. Because it teaches you where your responsibility ends and where your dignity begins. When you do your best with what is yours, and release the rest without resentment, you stop living at war with reality. You meet life as it is. And in that acceptance, not passivity, not weakness, but clarity, you regain authority over yourself. A calm mind is not a gift. It is a choice repeated daily. And the moment you stop wasting your mind on what you cannot command, you reclaim it for what you can become. Habit 3. Emotional mastery through the sacred pause. Most people believe their problem is emotion. It is not. Emotion is natural. Reaction is the danger. No human being is destroyed by anger, fear, jealousy, or sadness alone. They are destroyed by what they do in the moment they refuse to pause. Modern life trains speed. Respond instantly. Reply immediately. Defend yourself now. Explain, justify, attack, escape. Urgency feels powerful. But urgency is the enemy of wisdom. The Stoics understood something that remains painfully relevant. Between what happens and what you do, there is a space. And within that space lies your freedom. Most people never enter that space. They leap over it. And in doing so, they surrender control of their life to impulse, habit, and unresolved wounds. Marcus Aurelius did not teach emotional suppression. He taught emotional command. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not external events. But that power only appears when you pause long enough to reclaim it. The sacred pause is not dramatic. It is not visible to others. It is a quiet interruption of chaos. It is the moment you refuse to let emotion grab the wheel. When a trigger appears, disrespect, disappointment, rejection, criticism, fear, the untrained mind reacts as if survival is at stake. Heart rate rises. Thoughts narrow. The past intrudes. Old stories speak. And if you act here, you will act from distortion. The pause interrupts this chain. Not forever. Just long enough. A single breath already changes your physiology. 3 breaths return you to choice. The Stoics practiced this instinctively. They knew that the body must be calmed before the mind can judge clearly. In the pause, you do not argue with the emotion. You observe it. Name it without judgment. Anger, fear, shame, jealousy. Naming dissolves confusion. What is named loses power. Then you examine the story attached to the feeling. What am I telling myself right now? Is it true? Or is it familiar? Most emotional reactions are not responses to the present moment. They are echoes of earlier wounds. The pause exposes this. And then comes the most important step. Choice. Not the choice of comfort. The choice of alignment. You ask yourself the same question the Stoics always asked. What would virtue do here? Not what would feel satisfying. Not what would win the argument. Not what would protect my ego. But what would preserve my dignity. When you act from this place, something remarkable happens. The situation may remain difficult, but you do not become smaller inside it. The pause transforms conflict. A message not sent prevents a regret that would have lasted years. A breath taken dissolves an argument before it exists. A moment of silence preserves a relationship, or ends one cleanly without destruction. Most damage in life is not caused by events. It is caused by reactions that could have been paused. This is why the Stoics treated the pause as sacred. Because it turns you from a servant of impulse into a commander of yourself. Mastery is not numbness. It is direction. You still feel anger. You still feel fear. But those emotions no longer decide who you become next. A person who can pause cannot be easily manipulated. They cannot be rushed into decisions. They cannot be dragged into chaos by someone else's emotions. They move slowly where others panic. They speak less where others explain. They act deliberately where others react. And this is not weakness. This is control. The habit of pausing builds an internal authority that no external power can touch. Because it removes the most dangerous enemy of all: your own unexamined reaction. Every pause strengthens your self-trust. Every restrained response builds respect, inward first, outward second. Over time, your life changes texture. Less drama. Fewer apologies. Cleaner decisions. Calmer endings. And the world begins to treat you differently. Not because you demand respect, but because your presence no longer leaks instability. The sacred pause does not make life easier. It makes you unshakable. And when you can choose your reaction, you are no longer at the mercy of the moment. You are finally governing yourself. Habit 4. Premeditatio Malorum. Strength through preparation. Most people are not broken by hardship. They are broken by surprise. They expected life to be smooth. They expected effort to be rewarded immediately. They expected people to be fair, plans to work, days to unfold as imagined. And when reality does not cooperate, they collapse. Not because the obstacle is unbearable, but because the mind was never trained to meet it. Stoicism begins by removing this illusion. Life is not obligated to be easy. And the sooner you accept this, the stronger you become. The Stoics practiced a discipline that modern thinking avoids. They rehearsed difficulty before it arrived. Not to become pessimistic, but to become unshakable. Premeditatio Malorum means the premeditation of adversity. It is the quiet act of looking directly at what might go wrong, so it loses its power to terrify you. Seneca wrote that heroes present difficulty of its strength by having contemplated its arrival beforehand. This was not fear. It was preparation. An unprepared mind reacts with shock. A prepared mind responds with clarity. Most people are ambushed by ordinary life. A delay feels like betrayal. A rejection feels like an attack. A small inconvenience feels personal. Because they train their mind only for comfort. The Stoics trained for impact. They understood that adversity does not announce itself. It arrives quietly. Through missed messages, broken expectations, disrespect, loss, change. When the mind expects perfection, reality feels violent. When the mind expects challenge, reality feels manageable. Premeditatio Malorum is practiced simply. Each morning, you imagine one realistic disruption. Not catastrophe. Not tragedy. Just friction. A plan falling apart. Someone speaking unfairly. An effort not being recognized. An interruption. A delay. Then you ask yourself a deeper question. If this happens, who will I be? Not how will I feel? Who will I be? Which virtue will I need? Wisdom to see clearly. Courage to endure discomfort. Justice to remain honorable. Temperance to restrain impulse. You also ask what emotion might arise. Annoyance. Disappointment. Resentment. And you decide in advance not to be ruled by it? This is where power is built. Before the moment arrives. Because when difficulty comes, and it always comes, your mind recognizes it. It has been here before. And recognition removes fear. The obstacle no longer feels like a personal attack. It feels like terrain. This practice changes your relationship with life. You stop demanding smoothness. You stop feeling entitled to ease. You stop interpreting resistance as injustice. And something unexpected happens. You become grateful more often. Because when you stop expecting perfection, ordinary stability feels generous. When you stop expecting fairness, moments of fairness feel precious. When you stop expecting comfort, comfort becomes a gift instead of a demand. Premeditatio Malorum does not make you cold. It makes you resilient. You still feel disappointment. But it does not knock you off balance. You still face hardship, but it does not fracture your identity. You move through difficulty with quiet readiness. Not tense, not bitter, but grounded. This is psychological armor. Not against pain, against collapse. The world will test you. That is guaranteed. What is not guaranteed is whether you will meet that test with panic or preparation. Those who rehearse adversity move through life with steadiness. They are rarely shocked, rarely outraged, rarely destabilized. Not because life is kind to them, but because their mind is trained. Strength is not built in ease. It is built in expectation. And when you prepare your mind for what may come, nothing arrives as a stranger. Nothing catches you unready. Nothing breaks you. Habit 5. Radical honesty in your journal. Most people are not lost because they lack information. They are lost because they avoid the truth about themselves. They stay busy. They stay distracted. They stay entertained. Anything, as long as they do not have to sit quietly with their own mind. Because silence exposes what noise hides. The Stoics understood that an unexamined mind becomes a prison. Not because it is evil, but because it operates in the dark. Seneca ended each day by reviewing himself. Not to punish, not to shame, but to see clearly. Clarity, to the Stoics, was not self-criticism. It was self-respect. Radical honesty begins where excuses end. It is the willingness to look at yourself without performance, without defense, without storytelling. Most people lie to themselves in subtle ways. They rename fear as caution. They rename avoidance as patience. They rename comfort as self-care. And slowly, these small distortions shape an identity that feels stuck but familiar. What you do not confront begins to govern you. Journaling is not about writing beautifully. It is about removing filters. When you write honestly, patterns appear. You see which emotions control you most. Which situations trigger weakness. Which habits drain your energy. Which beliefs quietly sabotage your confidence. You also begin to see something else. Moments of discipline you overlooked. Acts of courage you minimized. Progress you dismissed because it was not dramatic. The journal becomes a mirror. Not to admire yourself. Not to condemn yourself. But to understand yourself. The Stoic journal is not a diary of events. It is an examination of alignment. At the end of the day, you ask questions that cut through illusion. Where did I act with virtue today? Where did I betray my own standards? What emotion ruled me most strongly? What belief fed that emotion? What am I genuinely grateful for? What will I correct tomorrow? These questions do not make you harsh. They make you precise. Naming an emotion weakens it. Exposing a belief loosens its grip. Turning vague guilt into clear insight removes its poison. Most people fear journaling because they fear judgment. But the journal does not judge. It reveals. And revelation is freedom. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop breaking your own heart. Because self-betrayal only survives in confusion. Radical honesty builds identity. Identity builds discipline. Discipline builds a life you can stand inside without flinching. Over time, this habit creates something rare. Self-trust. You know what you will tolerate. You know what you will correct. You know where you are strong. You know where you must grow. There is no inner chaos when there is no inner deception. The journal becomes a place of accountability without cruelty. A place where you take responsibility without collapse. A place where you prepare to act better tomorrow, not perfectly, but intentionally. This is why honesty is a form of self-care. Not the comforting kind. The strengthening kind. Because when you face yourself fully, you stop running from who you are. And you begin shaping who you are becoming. Habit 6. Voluntary discomfort, building mental immunity. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort. They treat it as danger, as failure, as something that must be eliminated as quickly as possible. The Stoics saw it differently. To them, discomfort was not an enemy. It was a teacher. A mind that never touches hardship becomes fragile. It panics at small delays. It collapses under mild pressure. It negotiates with itself the moment resistance appears. Comfort, when it becomes a habit, weakens the soul. Seneca deliberately chose hardship when he did not need to. He ate simply. He slept without luxury. He exposed himself to cold and inconvenience. Not to suffer, but to remember. Comfort is a privilege, not a guarantee. Voluntary discomfort is the act of meeting difficulty on your terms. It is controlled, intentional, temporary. And because it is chosen, it builds strength instead of resentment. Modern life removes friction from almost everything. Warm rooms, instant food, endless distraction, predictable routines. This constant ease trains the mind to expect smoothness. And when life inevitably becomes rough, the untrained mind reacts with panic. Voluntary discomfort reverses this conditioning. It tells your nervous system a different story. I can endure. I do not need immediate relief. I am not in danger simply because I am uncomfortable. This rewires your response to stress. Discomfort does not mean suffering. Suffering is resistance. Discomfort is simply sensation without interpretation. When you expose yourself to small difficulties on purpose, fear loses authority. Your tolerance expands. Your confidence becomes grounded. This does not require extremes. It requires consistency. A cold shower instead of a warm one. Walking when driving would be easier. Eating simply when indulgence is available. Sitting in silence without reaching for your phone. Having the conversation you would rather avoid. Each of these acts sends a signal inward. I can do hard things. I am not ruled by craving. I am capable of restraint. And slowly, this identity hardens. You stop bargaining with yourself. You stop postponing discipline. You stop treating discomfort as a threat to your happiness. You begin to see it as training. This is where emotional stability is forged. Not in moments of calm, but in moments where comfort is available and you decline it. The Stoics understood that a person who cannot endure small discomforts will collapse under large ones. But a person who trains under small pressures becomes resilient under heavy weight. Voluntary discomfort builds mental immunity. When life becomes chaotic, you do not scramble. When plans fall apart, you do not shatter. When emotions surge, you do not panic. Because your mind recognizes pressure as familiar territory. This habit removes fear at its root. Fear thrives on novelty. Familiar difficulty loses its teeth. And here is the quiet transformation. When you stop avoiding discomfort, you stop fearing life. You no longer need perfect conditions to feel strong. You no longer delay action until motivation arrives. You no longer depend on ease to function. You move forward regardless of mood. This is not cruelty toward yourself. It is respect. You are teaching your mind that it can be trusted under strain. That trust becomes self-respect. And self-respect is unshakable. Discomfort, when chosen wisely, does not break you. It prepares you. And a prepared mind does not fall apart when tested. Habit 7. The art of saying no, guarding your inner kingdom. Most people do not lose their lives all at once. They lose them slowly. Through small yes they never meant to give. Yes to things that drain them. Yes to expectations they did not choose. Yes to guilt disguised as responsibility. And with each unnecessary yes, something essential leaks away. Time. Energy. Clarity. Self-respect. Stoicism teaches a truth that modern culture avoids. Self-care is not indulgence. It is protection. And nothing protects your life more quietly, more powerfully, than the ability to say no. Most people fear saying no because they confuse boundaries with rejection. They believe refusal is rude. That restraint is selfish. That choosing themselves will cost them love. But the Stoics understood something deeper. A boundary is not a wall. It is a definition. It defines what you are willing to give, what you will no longer tolerate, what you refuse to sacrifice, even under pressure. Every yes that violates your values weakens you. Not dramatically. Internally. Because integrity fractures in small compromises, not grand failures. When you say yes out of fear, fear grows. When you say yes out of guilt, guilt becomes your master. When you say yes to keep the peace, you lose your own. You cannot love yourself while continuously abandoning your limits. The Stoics did not aim to be liked. They aimed to be aligned. Alignment means your actions reflect your priorities. Your calendar reflects your values. Your energy flows toward what matters. This requires the courage to disappoint others before you disappoint yourself. Saying no does not require explanation. It does not require justification. It does not require apology. A calm no is enough. Not an angry no. Not a defensive no. A grounded no. One that comes from knowing what you are protecting. Your time is finite. Your attention is limited. Your emotional capacity is not endless. Treating these as sacred is not arrogance. It is wisdom. Most people are exhausted not because life is too demanding, but because they never learn to refuse access. When you stop saying yes automatically, something changes. People adjust. Some resist. Some disappear. And that is information. Those who respected you remain. Those who benefited from your lack of boundaries lose interest. This is not loss. It is clarity. Each no strengthens your relationship with yourself. You begin to trust that you will protect your own life. That trust becomes confidence. Quiet. Unforced. And with confidence comes peace. You are no longer pulled in 10 directions. You no longer resent obligations you chose unconsciously. You no longer feel fragmented. Your life gains shape. Stoicism teaches that your time is your most valuable possession. Every yes spends it. Every no invests it. When you guard your time, you guard your future. Saying no creates space. Space for rest. For depth. For growth. For work that matters. For relationships that nourish instead of drain. This is the final form of self-care. Not softness. Not escape. Sovereignty. A person who can say no calmly cannot be controlled, cannot be rushed, cannot be used. They move through life with quiet authority. Because their actions answer to principle, not pressure. And when you finally learn to say no to what diminishes you, you say yes to who you are becoming. This is not rejection. It is direction. You are not here to serve every demand. You are here to guard your inner kingdom. And a kingdom that is protected endures. These 7 habits are not ideas. They are disciplines. They teach you to live by virtue, protect your mind, pause before reacting, prepare for hardship, face yourself honestly, train through discomfort, and guard your life with boundaries. Most people will hear this and change nothing. A few will practice quietly. You do not need perfection. You need alignment. The moment you stop abandoning yourself, your life stops drifting. Self-care is not softness. It is sovereignty. And when you commend yourself, life no longer controls you.